All right, welcome back to Train Signal. You're watching the App Locker video where we're going to start getting into Server 2008 and Windows 7 better together, as Microsoft says. In this video, we're going to look at how you can decide who can run what applications on your desktop. And the good news is that it's easier than it's been in the past. In the past, we've had these software restriction policies, these hash marks, and all this other stuff. And it kind of drove me up a wall a little bit, to be honest with you. But now, this new App Locker stuff, it's gotten easier. It really has. So in this video, I'm just going to take you through the App Locker GPO setting. This is actually in a group policy object. It's a set of really pretty cool, pretty easy to set up settings. And once you get the hang of it and you know a couple of little intricacies to make sure that you don't lock out your users from everything, because you can if you don't do this right. So make sure that you follow this procedure step by step. Watch this video 3 or 4 times if you have to. But once you get the hang of it, you're going to find out that locking people out of stuff and allowing other folks access to the stuff is going to be pretty easy. So let me give you just a quick screenshot before we move over to the server and I start introducing you how to set up this particular setting. This is just it's in every group policy object, and just so you know, it's under the computer configuration. We're only working with computer configuration side stuff. We are not working with user side stuff. All right, so don't get confused right off the bat. It's under the Windows settings section, under security settings, and then you go down here to application control policies. And the App Locker stuff is right underneath there. So we have to go a few levels into the GPO in order to find it. But once we do, it's pretty easy to set up from there. Let me show you a few other things about this screenshot here real quick. There's some more information here about App Locker and which editions of Windows support App Locker. And just so you know, your options for this are Windows Server 2008 R2 and Windows 7. Then we get into this App Locker policy setting. There is a service that must be running. It's called the Application Identity Service. I'm going to show you how to set up your group policy object preferences so that you can actually have the Application Identity Service start up and also set so that it's automatically running. By the way, the Application Identity Service is not turned on by default, so we must turn it on some way, somehow. And of course, group policy preferences is the absolute easiest way to make that happen. So we're going to get into our server. We're going to move over to the Hyper-V server where all of our stuff is, right? And first, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to move some things around. We're going to be creating this group policy object for our Win7 client that we've been messing around with in previous videos. We're going to set it up so that Roger U there cannot access, let's see, let's have him not access Internet Explorer. Maybe Roger U there has been kind of naughty, and so we're going to block access to Internet Explorer for him and make sure he's not sucking all of our bandwidth watching, whatever it is that he was watching, but we won't conjecture about that because this is still a family show, right? All right, so let's move on over to the server and let's make this happen. All right, so we're over here on the Hyper-V machine. We're going to go into the DC-R2 machine, and we're going to, first of all, do a little bit of Active Directory work. Let's go into computers where you want to create this group policy object to apply to only Win7. Now, we could use, filtering and all that stuff, but chances are you're probably going to be utilizing this kind of technique for many machines for a lot of users. So let's go ahead and let's create a separate organizational unit altogether, specifically for, let's call this app restricted clients. There we go. And of course, in best practice, we will protect the container from accidental deletion. We'll tell it okay. And now we're going to go back to computers. Let's find our Win7 client machine. Let's drag it down to app restricted clients. And there he is, all happy, living in app restricted clients. Now that we have this computer account in the separate organizational unit, what we can do is we can attach a GPO only to this OU. So let's go ahead and let's do that now. I'm going to go ahead and shrink this one up so we have a little more space on the screen. I'm going to go into features of this particular domain controller, and hey, look, it's the group policy management. Hey, we've never seen this before, right? Okay, so let's go into our Globomantics R2 domain. And let's stretch this out here just a little bit so we can see. And let's see here. I'm not seeing app restricted clients. Let's hit the F5 key. And let's get a refresh on this one. And there it is. All right. Now, right now, the only thing it's applying to is the default domain policy. I don't want this policy to apply to all of my machines in the domain, at least yet anyway. And so I'm going to go ahead and right-click and create a GPO in this domain and link it to app-restricted clients. And we're just going to call this guy App Locker. And I'm not going to start with a starter GPO in this one. I'm just going to only set this one particular App Locker setting in this group policy object. Now that we have that created and linked, let's go ahead and let's get in here and edit this guy. Now there's a couple things that we're going to do inside of this particular GPO. First of all, we want to make sure that on all the machines in this particular organizational unit that the application identity service is running. So in order to do that, underneath computer configuration, underneath preferences and control panel settings, we're going to go into services. We're going to configure this application identity service by right-clicking in the blank area, new, and service, and we're going to have this particular application identity service start up automatically. We're going to select application identity. That's always a good thing to tell it which service to start. And now, where it says service action, we're going to have it start service. Okay. And it's going to start up automatically. Where we have this log on as, make sure you set that to no change, okay? We don't need to change who is actually running this particular service. And we tell it okay. And that's all that's needed to make sure that the App Locker policy will actually run on the machines in this organizational unit. You have to make sure that the app identity service is running. If you don't, you're going to be sad, okay? Because it just won't work. All right, so there's our first step in creating this particular App Locker policy. Now, let's go ahead and shrink that up. Now, again, we're still under computer configuration, and under policies, we're going to go to Windows settings, and inside of Windows settings, come on, Windows settings, let's go, there we go. We're going to go into security settings, and now under security settings, we're going to go to the application control policies. So let's double click on it here in the main window. Oh, nothing there. Let's go ahead and expand it. Go to App Locker. And now, here underneath App Locker, it'll give us some information about it. We don't have any rules. What we're really doing is we're creating rules here to decide who gets to run what. Now, before we start creating rules, I need to talk to you about something absolutely vital. This is one of the little bitty hitches that if you don't know about, you can lock your users out of their machines entirely. So pay close attention to this one step. It's super easy. What we need to do is we need to create what we call the default rules. So all I need to do in order to create those is I right-click here in the big white expanse and select Create Default Rules. That's going to create a series of 3 rules that are going to ensure that everyone that normally accesses this machine can still get to all their stuff. Okay, so we're creating a whole bunch of allow rules. If we're going to use the Windows installer rules, I'm going to stretch this guy out here just a second. If we're going to create Windows installer rules, we need to do the same thing. So let's go ahead and create the default rules for it, as well as the script rules. We won't get into script rules in this particular video. We're more interested in strictly the application executables. But you need to create the default rules in this particular setting. If you don't, you're going to run the chance of locking your users out of their systems altogether, and then you're going to get a bunch of help desk calls, and then you're going to be sad, okay? Again, my job is not to make you sad. My job is to make you happy. And when you're happy, hopefully your users are happy too. And everyone's happy, and we're all having a grand old time. All right. So now we're going to create an executable rule that is going to lock out Roger You There from utilizing Internet Explorer. Now, there's 2 ways that we can do this. We can create a new rule manually, or we can use this automatically generate rules wizard. So you get the option, take your pick, you get to do the same thing with both items, okay? So let's create a new rule here, and we're going to go ahead and hit next. First of all, our rule is going to be denying a particular application from being used, and now we get to decide who is going to be denied from it. I'm going to hit select, and I'm going to type in here, are you there? We'll check the name. All right, Roger, you there. Excellent. So we're going to be denying Roger, you there. Let's hit next. We're going to be denying him either a publisher, a path, or a file hash. Now, if you're used to using file hashes in software restriction policies, this is not going to be hard for you to wrestle if you want to worry about applications that are not signed. I'm more interested in keeping this simple in this round, so I'm going to select path. Now, you and I both know that Internet Explorer is on the same path for all of your machines unless you made some kind of weird configuration network-wide where Internet Explorer lives. So I'm going to use path here, and I'm going to tell it next. And now I need to tell it what path am I going to restrict. Now, if you know the path, then you just simply type it in. Or if it's something as universal as, say, Internet Explorer, we can go ahead and browse folders or files. Now, whether you browse the folder or the files, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. I'm going to go ahead and just, block out the entire folder, prevent anything from inside of Internet Explorer from running altogether. Notice this little wildcard mark. So that's probably the fastest, easiest, and most efficient way to get it done. Or if there's a specific executable that you want to specify, you can do that here as well. But I'm going to just stick to the file folder thing, and we'll hit next. Do I want to create exceptions to this particular rule? We can specify specific exceptions of publisher, path, and file hash to make this more complicated. We're just keeping this very simple for this particular exercise. We'll tell it next. And now we need to enter a name to identify the rule. And so we're going to call this here, are you there's no IE. Okay, that'll work. And now in the description, we're going to say, Roger has been naughty, and we're not letting him play on the web. Okay? All right, there we go. And we'll hit create, and that's going to create the deny rule. All right, nifty. This should work a-okay, but before we try this out, we need to go back here to the app blocker settings, and we need to configure rule enforcement. Now, let's go ahead and enforce the rules. Now, by the way, there's also this option for auditing only, so you can actually try out the rules and then go back through the logs, the auditing logs, to see if they actually work. We're just going to go ahead and skip to enforce rules in this instance. Now, we can also configure the installer rules and the script rules as well if we've actually created any. Now, we've created some default rules, so let's go ahead and enforce those for right now, and we'll tell it OK. All right, so here are the rules that we have set up and that are currently configured. Let's go ahead and close out of our Group Policy Management Editor to save those changes. Now let's go ahead and let's minimize DCR2, and let's go to our Windows 7 client, which is over here running happily. Now let's see, who's logged in right now? Supercoach. No, let's not do that. Let's go ahead and log off Supercoach here. And let's go ahead and log on as Roger, you there. And we'll go ahead and we'll log on here as Roger, you there. And we'll put in Roger's password. And now let's go ahead and let's try it. Let's see what happens when we actually do click on Internet Explorer. Oh, look, this program is blocked by group policy. For more information, contact your system administrator. Can't open this item. Do you want to remove this item? No, I don't want to remove it because we might actually give it back to Roger eventually. But that's all there is to it. Isn't that nice? I think this particular setting is super easy to start to get your head around. There are more advanced features, obviously, if you want to use file hashes and get into that whole signing thing, or if you want to restrict users to one particular version of an application, you can do that here as well. Now, by the way, I want to go here. Let's go ahead and log off Roger you there now that we know that that does work. I'm going to log back into this machine as Supercoach, and what I want to do is I want to show you how to find the paths for the particular applications that you want to restrict. Because, something as universal as like Internet Explorer, all right, no problem. But if you have applications that are already currently installed on your client machines, well, you need to go figure out what you want to do with them, right? You want to see what the publishers are. You want to find out, what the paths are and all that good stuff. So in order to do that, I'm here on a client machine. What you do is you simply do a quick search for local security policy. Go into the local security policy. What you're going to find is that AppLocker is also present on Win 7 local policy as well as the group policy settings. So let's go ahead and maximize this. And here's the application control policies. And here's the AppLocker settings. And we'll go into executable rules. You notice there's no executable rules in the local policy. We're looking at the local policy, by the way, not the group policy. Now then, let's take a look in the executable rules. Let's create a new executable rule here real quick. And we'll hit next, and we'll just leave this one as allow. We're not actually going to test it. We're just going to go in here and we're going to take a look at how to find the information that you'll use inside of group policy. Now, I guess you could set it up as a local security policy if you're only worried about one particular machine, but that's not particularly efficient, right? When you have 2,500 machines, modifying the local security policy just is not the best idea. Let's go ahead and let's try Publisher this time. Okay, we'll take a look at that. We'll hit next. Now, when we're looking at Publisher instead of the file path, let's go ahead and click on Browse here, and let's go find, DVD Maker. All right, let's use this one. Let's say that we want to modify who gets to do what with DVD Maker. Well, you see here that I selected this DVD Maker file, and it tells me the publisher, the product name, the file name, and the file version. Now, if there's multiple file versions available, we would select and above, exactly, or below. If you don't want to go this specific, we can always scroll upwards, and you'll see that as I scroll up, it turns these file names and file versions into wildcards. So anything basically with this publisher and this product name we can't use. Now, if we want to specify a publisher, okay, everything from Microsoft Corporation in Redmond, Washington is either allowed or disallowed. You can get all kinds of crazy with that. And we can also specify custom values. Specifically, here's that above and below exactly. Again, you get to decide which version of a particular application that you want to allow in use as well. All right, so this is how we basically find out information, especially with publishers, especially when you have a large amount of clients that have, let's say Adobe Acrobat, Acrobat Reader. It's a very common one. And you want to make sure that users can only utilize version 8, or let's say only version 9, because I think 10 just came out not very long ago. Let's say version 7 for some weird reason. Okay, so you want to make sure that everybody can only use Acrobat Reader 7. You can specify that version right here. And then next, then you could add any exceptions to this here as well. I'm not going to worry about exceptions for this one, but once you have client machines and you know what software is installed in them, you can actually use them, create reference rules by just jumping over here and finding out, the information about particular files where they may happen to live. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to show that to you real quick, and also in case you have a Windows 7 machine, just so you know how to find that information so you can create your own rules. And you can create as many rules as you want. Okay? You create allow rules, deny rules. Let's say that for some weird reason on your image, you have an accounting software program installed on every single one of your 2,500 machines. You're like, oh man, that's really not so great. Well, what you can do is you can create a rule and decide, okay, everyone in the accountants group will get access to it, and if you're not in the accountants group, you get denied access. So, all right, so that's it. We got it figured out. I've shown you where to go find the information on how to get the information about which software you want to restrict. And I really recommend you play with this first on some test machines. Make sure that it's like any other group policy object setting. Okay, make sure that you know what you're doing. Test it out first to make sure everything is going to play nice before you roll it out to your entire enterprise. And again, I'm going to go back and I want to revisit something real quick, because if you get this one thing wrong, you're going to be super sad. You must absolutely create your default rules. Okay? I know I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to say it again because it's really super important that you do this. You must absolutely create your default rules inside of AppLocker. Otherwise, you're going to lock your users out of their machine altogether, and then everyone's going to be sad. And again, the way that you do that, you right click, create default rules. You must have them. Once you have your default rules, you can create as many deny or allow rules as you like. Okay? But you must have the default rules in place first. And that will wrap up this video. Okay? So let's go ahead and move back on over to the slides, and let's wrap this video up. Alright, so after watching this video, you should be able to locate the AppLocker GPO setting in the group policy editor. No brainer, right? You should be able to configure the application identity service to start automatically, and of course you're going to start it. Remember, we use the group policy preferences in order to make that happen. Great use for preferences to make AppLocker work properly. If you don't set up that service in group policy preferences, remember you have to do it manually in your local machines, and let's just get that done once and for all using group policy. Use the local security policy on a Win 7 client to identify applications that you want to lock down. I've shown you how to do that. It's pretty easy. Just log into any Windows 7 client that you have a regular image on. Go into local security policy, go into the AppLocker settings for it, and play around. Find out the information that you absolutely need to have in order to set up a path or a publisher, or if you're really, really wild and crazy, even the file hash. And then lastly, you should be able to create a basic AppLocker rule in order to deny the running of an application for a particular user. I've shown you how to do that in the GPO, and by the way, it's the same thing in local security policy. So if you're really wild and crazy, you want to do it per machine. If you only have 5 machines and that's all you do is local security policy, knock yourself out, I guess. But I think it's probably more useful to do it inside of a GPO, so that way you don't have to get up from your desk, right? And you don't want to cut down your Halo playing time or World of Warcraft time that much. So, all right. So I think this is going to be really useful to you. It's one of those new features that's been a long time coming. So boys and girls in Microsoft have created a very, very flexible system for you to use. So get to know it, punch around on it, try it out, but don't forget to create your default rules first. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next video.